Welcome to Phoenix Rising with Dr. Z. This podcast is all about conversations about healing and rising from the ashes of your grief and trauma. In this podcast, we will be deconstructing and highlighting the different aspects of grief and loss. I'm your host, Dr. Christina Zampatella. What a big difference. Because I'm thinking about, like, when I lived out in San Diego, I was thinking about how, when life coaching came out, and how pissed to the highest of festivity, like all of the psychologists were getting. They're like, they think they're therapists and blah, blah, blah. And I went to school for 9 fucking years. And they would just they'd get so upset because they were worried that people were going to be given advice, or were going to be therapized, so to speak, by people who didn't have the skill set. And so I would say to them, I said, yeah, but are they aware what the difference is? I said, because you can't say there's not room for multiple different kinds of careers. There absolutely is room, but do we know where the line is? And that they would not be happy about it at all. And that's when, like, the concept of life coaching first came out. And so when I moved out here, I remember there being a guy that I had run across who had said, oh yeah, I'm a life coach. And I'm like, okay, you're a life coach. And then he has like handouts. And he had come over to Integrative Psychology Group, which is my other practice. He had come over there to do a presentation to everybody. And he had these cards, like where you looked at your morals and values. Does that sound familiar? Mm-hmm. Okay. And that was actually kind of cool. Like I got some of those cards. I actually used them with some of my clients. And I thought, well, let me see how you guys feel about this and what you get out of it and what your morals and values are and what's important to you. And I actually thought it was kind of cool. But I remember the worksheets and going through them. And he had such a different way of looking at it and looking at it compared to what I had seen out in California, that I was like, I don't think life coaching out there is the same thing that I'm seeing here as life coaching in Delaware. It sounded like what people were being trained in was a little bit more rigorous, which surprised me, compared from California to Delaware, because Delaware's Delaware. And there was some good coaching good coaching programs out here. Where is that your program from?
It's online. Everything was online.
Like, is it from anywhere in particular?
I think he's in California now. Yeah. I think he's in California. Yeah, he's originally from the UK, I think.
Okay.
Indian guy from the UK, okay. But he's amazing.
Okay.
He's a bright light in this world, for sure. So as far as life coaching, because I do feel like there's a lot of blurred lines.
Yeah, there are.
The best way for me to describe it is, if somebody wants to be a basketball player or a football player, they would hire a coach to make them a better player.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they're going to help guide them to hone their skills. So if you want to hone your skills in your own life, because most of us, we just do the same thing over and over every single day. Everything's automatic. Have you ever driven from point A to point B and you don't even remember the trip?
I can walk from point A to point B and not know how I got there.
So that's what happens. Like,
yeah.
I think it's over 50%. I'm totally misquoting this, but over 50% of our day, like, is automatic. We don't even think about it. Like,
I can think that.
You get up, you brush your teeth, you go get breakfast. It's automatic. There's no thought behind it.
Yeah, no mindful.
And that's an issue. You know what I mean? Because we're not conscious, we're not aware, we're not trying to create a better life. We're not trying to do something different. If we have goals for ourselves, we aren't actually conscious of that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a good analogy.
So, yeah. So if you have a life coach, you have an accountability partner. It helps you speak about what you want in your life, and you set the goals. And for the next week, you have something to do. You've got goals.
It's very interesting. I like your distinction. Like, if you were gonna be a football player or a basketball player, you're gonna have a coach.
Yeah. You would want a coach. Like any good, any good team has a great coach.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, not the sports psychologist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there are sports psychologists. Let's talk about, like, the emotional barriers that are getting in the way of you being able to, deal with the anxiety you have about playing this game next week, right? There's a sports psychologist, let's talk about the mental blocks. And you're going, no, let's talk about how to build skills so that, you can, be able to get to the places where you want to go. So I think that's okay.
Yeah. And it's about building habits and knowing that the ones that are, you're doing right now are not working for you. And, it's hard to change.
Yeah.
It's incredibly difficult, especially if something's been the same over and over again. It's hard to be a different person. It's challenging. So to bring awareness and to try to change that is huge.
Yeah. Like I was just thinking about even the food that I eat and the, system about of the how do you explain it? The system of changing your eating habits. I know you and I, God knows, you had me eating more celery.
But you felt great.
I felt great eating celery.
Yeah, but that's perfect example. So you've been eating a certain way for a very long time, right? Now things have happened in your life where you need to change those things, right? It doesn't come easy to you because it's not a habit. So when you do change those things and you create a system and you actually do it, then it becomes easier,
right?
Because you're not going back to your old habits,
right?
Because the old habits are ingrained, they're mindless, and you don't have to think about it. You have to think about changing. You have to think about, okay, well, I'm going to eat more fruits. I'm going to eat more veggies. I'm going to clean up all of my junky snacks. I'm not going to eat those anymore. It's hard because it's easy to just go and grab a bag out of the pantry or grab something out of the refrigerator that is not doing you any favors. That's difficult. It's harder to, even though it takes 5 seconds, cut up an apple and eat that. It's much harder than grabbing something out of the pantry.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
because when I started doing the celery, although, okay, I'm going to, so as we both know, the only celery that tastes right is the celery from Costco. All the other celery tastes like shit, and I haven't figured out why. So I have it in my brain, Jeff all of a sudden, decides that he wants to drink celery juice. All right, so fine. So I buy a shit ton of celery from Costco. Not a little bit, not just a few things, a pallet of freaking celery juice. You know what goes bad after you haven't juiced celery for a week? Celery. Yeah. You gotta juice it, which is a pain in the ass. You're like all the way down. And so I remember when we were, you were talking to me about this is going to make you feel much better. And then Jeff was like, oh my God, I feel so much better. That was, I think, an example of you going this is a choice that you have and you can, try to do something different. And we did. And now we're not doing it anymore because I got out of the damn habit of doing it.
Right. And it happens. I'm out of that habit too.
God, it was surprising that I love celery juice. Surprising. I can't believe this stuff doesn't taste like shit. This is great.
It's hilarious.
It is true. And then you're like, you can't put apple in it. I'm like, why? It doesn't work. Yes, it does. It tastes better. But it was the little things. It really was. And I began to feel a lot better. And I'm just thinking about just the other habits that you and I had talked about because we were doing that whole medical medium thing and the brain cleanse and all of this other stuff. And I'm reading his books that are this thick. And by the way, if you're just listening, it's 5 inches. That's not really 5 inches, but I think they are huge, huge books. And half of which all say the same freaking thing because he copied and pasted it. And so the things that I did learn, though, made me afraid to do anything at all.
Well, I think it's actually trying to be healthy is such a hard feat, especially if you have, any kind of chronic illness like you and I both have. And when you learn of what is going on in our world, it's horrifying. And then you're scared to do anything, but you just have to be mindful and just try to cut out the bad stuff, in our diets, in our lives, emotionally, mentally, people.
I'm thinking about all the things I'm going to cut out. Thinking about all the things I'm going to cut out, all the people. Can't go outside because what are those called with the
Chemtrails.
Yeah, chemtrails.
Yeah.
Like you see an airplane go by and there's a chemtrail, and I'm like, I'm gonna die. My brain is gonna.
Yeah, they're not making it easy for us.
They're
They
not
definitely
making
are not.
everything is bad. Is it really Do you think they're chemtrails?
Yeah, absolutely.
You think they're just dumping chemicals out of planes?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah, if you look hard enough, you'll find the information
Oh my
online.
God.
That's why we just have to try to detoxify as much as possible and try not to retox.
Do you have any idea how impossible I have found
It's
this?
difficult. It's difficult.
Because it's not convenient.
It's not convenient.
And I think
they don't make it easy.
They don't make it easy. So let's talk about this life coach.
Yeah. Let's get back.
So here I am trying to get healthy, right? Okay, well, I'm gonna get on my Peloton 4 days a week, which I do. I enjoy it. I love going. Fine. I like working out. But the eating part is what always I get hiccuped. The eating that part is the part that becomes the issue. So why is it so hard, do you think, to maintain a healthy eating in our culture if I want to make changes?
Okay, well, number one, our food supply is pretty terrible.
It sucks.
They make the fast foods, like snack foods and stuff like that. They're filled with chemicals that
terrible.
lights up your brain.
Yeah.
It's terrible for your gut, and that creates bad moods. The brain and the gut are completely connected.
Absolutely.
They totally are. And we're just out of the habit of eating real food. You know what I mean? Like, say all of the plants blew up and we couldn't get those snack foods, the stuff that comes in a box, all the crap that is not actually food, it's just a bunch of chemicals smashed together. Like, and we had to go and forage. Like, everybody would die because they wouldn't even know what was edible and what wasn't. You know what I mean?
I'd die from a mushroom.
Exactly. I mean, but that's
Seriously.
what would happen.
No.
Yeah, so it's just habits. We just don't eat healthy food anymore. Plus, our soil is just so bad.
It's so disgusting.
And the pesticides that they put on our food is
disgusting.
terrible. Yeah, it's terrible. So it is difficult. You have to be incredibly mindful. You have to be incredibly conscious and aware of what you are consuming and how quickly it can affect you.
But our government and our culture does not. I know it's like completely off track.
Totally off.
But
Totally off.
Yeah, but I love it because it's like, well, I mean, if I was coming to you and I have, like, help me figure out how to eat right, and this is a goal, and I'm asking you for your like, I need to know this stuff. Like, our culture does not support the eating in a way that allows our bodies to heal itself. It doesn't, and I don't understand why, other than money.
Yeah. Well, I feel like everybody's gotten in such a rush, like, got to do this, got to do that. Everything's like a quick fix. And it's kind of evolved into our foods too. So I feel like if we just get back to the basics and eat real food, it's easier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's less brain power if you think of it that way. Like, diets don't work. I know diets don't work. Like, there are a million different diets, and there's a million different studies that have been done. Like, one is that I just heard about is the carnivore diet. So if you only eat meat, like, everybody's saying, oh, you're going to have so much energy, you're going to have this and that. But if you look at the China study that was done, I think back in the 70s, it tells you that when you consume meat, cancer genes turn on. They're probably both right.
Yeah.
But this carnivore diet is, you are not eating any of the junk.
Right.
You're not eating any of the pesticides. You're abstaining from all the garbage. So diets do work. They don't work because it's too far from what you do normally. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
So it's got to be lifestyle choices. That's what it's all about. Lifestyle habits, lifestyle choices. You have to pick the apple over the snacky food, whatever it is. I don't buy any of that stuff, but so you just have to be mindful to eat the apple instead of eating whatever comes in the bag. And get in the habit of that. So when your brain starts going, oh, I want a bag of potato chips, you go grab the apple. And the best thing I can say to do is to just have it all prepped. That way it's mindless. It's already done. And you just go into the refrigerator and grab your mason jar and eat the apples instead.
The apple. So that's kind of stuff that you would help me with if I were in coaching, and then that could help facilitate healing because I'm healing from the inside out. And if I'm grieving or I'm traumatized, I'm already hyperactive or hyperactivated. I guess I am hyperactive, but hyperactivated because my sympathetic nervous system is on fire. And so by having somebody who can help walk me through, the whole, eating healthier so that my body will cool down, my brain will cool down, my heart will cool down, and my vagus nerve will like chill the fuck out, then it all can become part of a dovetail process.
Yes.
And then that's where you can come in.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I do feel like I love starting with food because I think it makes such an impact. Like people, like I'll have people come to me and they're like in tears, they're depressed, they're, unhappy. And I'm like, go eat an apple. They eat 2 apples a day and they're like happy as a clam. I'm like, you okay? They're like, oh my God, I'm so happy now. And it's like the craziest thing. And
2
then,
apples?
Yeah.
That's all you got to do?
I mean, I would eat more, but
I can totally eat 2 apples.
Yeah, eat 2 apples and just see how your life changes. And then, it's like, okay, I've got this. This is a habit now, and then move on to the next thing. And then food just really changes who we are, like more than just internally, like emotionally it changes us.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's a really great place to start because when you have the energy, I love to talk about like eating live food gives you life. Right? When you eat dead food, what's that going to give you?
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's going to probably make you bloated and make you depressed and not give you any kind of energy. So that's where we start. Like, what can we do to give you more energy?
Yeah.
So we start with the food and then we start setting goals.
Well, and if you have more energy, then you have the ability to, be able to make movement in your life and be able to do things like go for a hike and be out in nature, which I just did a little podcast on, just a little bit right before you got here, which we'll see how that came out. I don't know about all that now, but if it's giving you the energy, so it really does dovetail really well.
It does. It really does. Like I can tell even for myself, I deal with a lot of chronic illness, and on the days that I feed myself stuff that is not living, by the end of the night, I can't even put a sentence together. So the next morning I start with my smoothies and I'm like, all right, I can do this, and then my day is just so much better when I start out with something super healthy.
No, I think you're 100% right, because that's how I felt like today. Like I was out till late last night. I was out at a comedy show, and it was in Baltimore, and oh my God, we got in at like 1 o'clock, and I was like, I've got to get up and do, well, like I said, we had to do this podcast stuff, and I didn't end up with the amount of sleep that I needed, and I didn't eat right, and I felt off, and I can feel that like I've been off throughout the day. And when I'm off like that, and then I'm not able to produce, then I get anxious, then the anxiety kicks in, then things get worse, and it just becomes this cascade of like just my body and my brain not functioning at all. So I can see why that would be really helpful. I guess tomorrow I've got to get up and get a smoothie. I need to eat well tonight, sleep well. I'm having a full blown out conversation of coaching myself in a minute.
That's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're like, I
think
self-awareness.
I need to pull that shit together. I guess I'm eating a couple of
pull out your mason
apples.
jars and just,
I don't have mason jars. I have these like tall skinny things. I don't know what they are. Okay. They're like wannabe mason jars.
Like whatever you can put whatever like
mason jar
living
lights.
food in. It doesn't matter.
Track down.
It's just a vehicle.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. All right. I don't know. It'll be good for me to have the reset tomorrow. And the more we're talking about it, the more I'm realizing, I think that's probably a really good idea. So thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
So, what do you think are 3 takeaways for our viewers?
Our 3 takeaways for our viewers are make a commitment to yourself, personal commitment to yourself.
Okay.
And follow through. And it doesn't matter how long it takes you there to get there. But get there. Hiring a life coach is basically like, the easy way to get you there. Any small movement forward is still forward movement. So even if you're leaning in that direction, it's still forward movement.
It's still forward movement.
Yep. And then change is hard, but staying the same is harder.
Oh.
And you've got to choose your hard.
That's true. I'm berating myself right now. That's probably not a good thing, right?
No, there's no guilt. No guilt.
See, I'm feeling
It just
guilt.
it's where you are in the present moment forward. What you did yesterday or 10 minutes ago doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's where you are now, where you want to be, and let's get you there.
Yeah, good. I'm just sitting here going, yeah, I can see how that would be important. And I'm sitting here going, I think I need a little bit of a mind shift. So, after today, we'll just sit down and talk and try to make. How much does use your words. How much does a life coach cost?
It really just depends on the person. I mean, I just read about a gentleman who I think, very highly of, and he charges $200,000 for 100 hours.
Wait, okay, hold on. You said
100 hours.
What did you just say?
$200,000 for 100 hours. That's what he charges.
The wrong fucking business. I went to school for 9 years.
Yes, and he charges up front. You got to give him a check for $200,000. Yep. And if you don't do what you say you're going to do, he's done. So before you even start,
I did the wrong thing. I should. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, Tony Robbins, to go to one of his programs, like week-long programs, it's like $10,000.
Yeah, no.
So, but it depends. Like some people start at $50, $100, and you go up from there. It just really depends.
Okay.
There's business coaches. There's all kinds of coaches. So you can really niche down into what you really want to explore in your life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That question came to me after I said, "What are your 3 takeaways?" And I was like, "Oh, wait a minute. I don't think our listeners have ever been, exposed to that information." But $2,000 an hour?
Yeah, and people pay, and he's got a waiting list years long.
They've got to be all the rich people, right? All the rich and famous people.
Not necessarily. I just read a book that his wife just wrote. I'm almost at the end. I was reading it before I came in today, and no, there's like 22-year-olds that have somehow figured it out to give him that much money. Yeah, because they've been that impacted by him and meeting him.
I don't got $200,000 to give it to anybody. My God, it's pretty impressive.
It's crazy, right?
It is.
Yeah,
That's
really
that's
crazy.
Impressive.
So I don't charge that much, but
I was going to say, because if you do, we're doing a fee split here. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Well, hey, thank you so much.
Yeah,
I really appreciate you being here and coming and sharing your knowledge and clarifying, like for me and for our listeners and our viewers. And did you know this stuff? I didn't know this stuff. I'm really glad that you came and you made those clarifications. So if somebody wanted to reach you here at the Center for Grief and Trauma Therapy, you would say, what? How can they get a hold of you?
Come see me at the center. Go to our website. I'll be on there.
Yeah. Center for Grief and Trauma Therapy. So it's the Center for Grief and centerforgrieftherapy.com. And talked to the marketing company yesterday. Your stuff's getting put up on there.
Perfect.
So you'll be able to make an appointment with Chrissy, and you can do it virtually too.
Mm-hmm. Virtually, yep.
So anyway, yeah, I'm trying to think here. Anyway, yeah, and then they can make an appointment with you, and you can do it virtually or you can do it in person.
Yep.
So that's nice. I don't have to even worry about coming here.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
And we're gonna talk about your personal story next. So we'll say goodbye now and
stay tuned for that.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. This is like we're doing a whole pivot. It's a whole pivot. So all right. Thank you for listening to Phoenix Rising with Dr. Z. If you found this podcast helpful, please share it, subscribe, and leave a rating or review wherever you get your podcasts. We want to be a resource for anyone who is experiencing loss, and this is a simple way you can help us spread the word. Check out our show description. There you'll find a link to connect with me on social media, as well as helpful articles and resources.